I ran the factory floor for 22 years without a single major accident. You know what my reward was? A cardboard box for my things. My name is Kenny Hallman, 59 years old, lead foreman at Western Plains Manufacturing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We made industrial valves and pressure equipment for all refineries, precision work where mistakes could cost lives down the line. That Monday morning, Patricia from Human Resources called me into the conference room. Leonard Wright, the new operations director, who'd been with us all of 4 months, sat there with a spreadsheet, clean hands, pressed shirt. Guy had never set foot on my floor except for the mandated safety tour. Kenny, we're implementing some operational changes, Patricia said, sliding a folder across the table. The company is streamlining supervisory positions. Leonard nodded along. Market pressures, competitive restructuring. I opened the folder, severance package. 2 weeks to train my replacement. Half my pension would vest immediately. The other half would come in monthly payments. The company logo at the top of the page looked different. They changed it last year without telling any of us on the floor. Your replacement starts tomorrow, Patricia added like she was telling me the cafeteria was serving chicken. Jason Weber, he's got a business degree from Oklahoma State. Very promising. I closed the folder and looked at the wood grain in the table. 22 years, no major accidents. 346 employees had gone home safe under my watch. Day after day, I'd built the safety protocols they still used, implemented the maintenance schedules they followed, trained every foreman and lead tech on that floor. I understand, I said. Leonard looked relieved. Patricia's smile barely reached her eyes. That night, I drove home the long way past the riverfront where the old refineries used to stand. My father had worked there before the companies moved south. He'd always told me, Kenny, a man's value is in what he builds, not what he says. I'd built something at Western Plains, a system, a culture, a record, and now I had 2 weeks to hand it over to a kid who wouldn't understand what he was dismantling. When I got home, I called my old buddy Frank, who'd retired last year. They're letting me go, I told him. Bastards, he said. You going to raise hell? No, I said. But they'll realize soon enough, some knowledge doesn't transfer in 2 weeks. I hung up and looked at my work boots by the door. 22 years of factory floor grime that never quite washed out. They had no idea what they were losing. I started at Western Plains when my son Ethan was just a year old. Jennifer and I had been married for years, and that job meant stability, health insurance, a future. 3 shifts a week at first, then supervisor after 3 years, assistant foreman after 7, and finally lead foreman after old Jack Thompson retired. The floor was my second home. I knew every machine by its sound. Could tell when the number 3 press was struggling before any warning light came on. I could spot a safety risk from across the room, smell when the hydraulic fluid needed changing, feel when the ambient temperature was off by 2. Jennifer used to say I cared more about that factory than our own house. Maybe she was right. After she left 10 years ago, taking Ethan with her to Colorado, I poured everything into the job. Holidays, weekends, storm days when half the crew couldn't make it in. The company changed hands twice during my time. First was Midwest Industrial Group in 2011. They kept most things the same. Then Axiom Partners bought us in 2020. Private equity guys with algorithms and efficiency metrics. They started trimming excess capacity immediately. I noticed the changes slowly. Maintenance budget cuts, cheaper parts suppliers, longer intervals between machine servicing. They replaced 3 of my best mechanics with contract workers. Reduced inventory of replacement parts, started pushing production quotas higher every quarter. 6 months ago, Leonard Wright arrived with his MBA and his spreadsheets. He called a floor meeting his first week. We're implementing new performance tracking across all departments, he announced. Data-driven decision-making is the future of manufacturing. After the meeting, my lead machinist, Diego, pulled me aside. Kenny, this guy's going to be trouble. He asked me if we could modify the safety lockout procedure to save time. I brushed it off, then told Diego we'd manage like we always had, but the warning signs kept appearing. Leonard stopped attending the monthly safety reviews. Emails about equipment maintenance went unanswered. my requests for training budget were denied 3 times. Then they hired 3 junior supervisors fresh out of college who started questioning procedures we'd refined over decades. Kenny, is it really necessary to run a full diagnostic after every shift change? One asked. Another, these daily inspections seem excessive. The manual only recommends weekly checks. I started keeping my own records, dating and photographing maintenance requests, documenting every conversation about safety concerns. Something told me I might need proof someday of what we'd been doing right all these years. I just didn't expect to be shown the door so soon. The kid they brought in to replace me, Jason Weber, showed up in dress shoes and a tie his first day. 28 years old with gelled hair and a tablet he kept checking every 5 minutes. I'm really excited to learn from you before taking over, he said, offering a firm handshake like they teach in business school. I've already reviewed all the production metrics and identified several efficiency opportunities. I nodded and handed him a pair of steel-toed boots and safety glasses. Floor tour first, metrics later. For 2 weeks, I walked Jason through everything, showed him the maintenance schedules, the safety protocols, the personnel files, introduced him to every shift supervisor and lead operator. But I noticed something as days passed. He was taking notes about processes, but missing the people. He didn't ask Diego about his son who'd just joined the Marines. Didn't remember that Alicia on the assembly line needed extra break time for her diabetes. Didn't understand that you had to sweet-talk the number to milling machine on cold mornings. On my last Thursday, I overheard him talking to Leonard in the break room. Once we implement the new shift schedule, we can probably consolidate 2 of the maintenance positions, Jason said. And that safety redundancy Kenny insists on for the hydraulic press. The manual doesn't require those extra checks. Leonard nodded, pleased, exactly the fresh perspective we needed. They didn't see me standing there. I walked away quietly, something cold settling in my stomach. These weren't just changes to save money. They were dismantling safeguards I'd built over decades. Protections that kept people from losing fingers, arms, or worse. That afternoon, I made a decision. I called an impromptu meeting with my most trusted people, Diego, Alicia, Sam from maintenance, and Russell, who ran night shift. We met in the parking lot after work. They're going to start cutting corners, I told them, and the new kid doesn't know what. He doesn't know. What do you want us to do, Kenny? Diego asked. We can't just ignore the new boss. No, I agreed. But you can document everything, keep your own records, and if things start going sideways with the equipment. I handed each of them my personal phone number written on index cards. Call me, not management. Me, I spent my final day clearing out my locker. Jason was already sitting at my desk rearranging things. I handed him my keys. Any last advice? He asked, barely looking up from his tablet. Yeah, I said. Listen too. The floor, the machines talk to you if you pay attention. He smiled politely, clearly not understanding. I walked out without ceremony, no party, no cake, no speech. 22 years ended with a handshake from Patricia in Human Resources and a parking lot exit badge that deactivated as soon as I drove away. But I wasn't done with Western Plains, not really. I was just waiting. 3 weeks after I left, Diego called me. They're changing the maintenance schedule on the hydraulic presses, he said, voice low like he was hiding in the supply closet. Pushing it from weekly to bi-weekly inspections. Document it, I said. Note any pressure changes, any leaks, any unusual sounds. 2 days later, Sam from maintenance called. They denied my parts order for the backup generator. Said we can wait until the quarterly inventory. I kept a log of every call, every change, every corner cut. At 4 weeks, I decided to reach out formally. I wrote an email to Leonard and Patricia, professional and to the point. I've heard some concerning reports about changes to safety and maintenance protocols. Having overseen these systems for over 2 decades, I'd be happy to consult regarding the potential risks these modifications might introduce. Patricia replied within the hour, Thank you for your concern, Kenny. The transition has been smooth and Jason has implemented several efficiency improvements already. We'll certainly reach out if we need your insight. Corporate speak for stay away, At 6 weeks, the first accident happened. Minor, a belt slipped on the number 3 press, causing a 2-hour shutdown. No one hurt. Then a small hydraulic leak in week 7. Then 3 separate electrical issues in week 8. Russell called me after each incident, the new guys blaming the equipment. Kenny says it's all outdated and poorly maintained. My blood boiled. That equipment had run flawlessly under proper care. By week 10, I couldn't stand it anymore. I drove to the plant during lunch break and waited in the parking lot. When Diego came out, I waved him over to my truck. "How bad is it really?" I asked. Diego looked around before answering. "Bad, production's down 15%. They fired Sam last week, said he was resistant to change. And Jason's got his college buddy running maintenance now. Guy couldn't tell a torque wrench from a screwdriver. Anyone been hurt? That was my biggest fear. Not yet. But Russell almost lost a hand when a safety switch failed on the cutting line. Jason wrote it up as operator error. I made a decision then. I knew people at the State Industrial Safety Board. One call could trigger an inspection. The next morning, I made that call, explained my concerns, my history with the plant, the specific changes that worried me. The inspector, a woman named Helen Barnes, took detailed notes. "We'll conduct an unannounced inspection within the next 2 weeks," she assured me. I felt satisfied. The system would correct itself. 3 days later, Diego called again, panic in his voice. "They know, Kenny. Someone told management you were behind the inspection request." Leonard's. Going nuclear. My stomach dropped. What's happening? They've got us working overtime cleaning everything up, falsifying maintenance logs. The production line shut down so they can fix all the problems before the inspection. Then came the legal letter, hand-delivered to my house by courier. Western Plains Manufacturing was accusing me of malicious interference with business operations and violation of non-disclosure agreements. They threatened a lawsuit if I continued spreading false information about company practices. I called my lawyer, Bill Henderson. He reviewed the letter and they're bluffing about the NDA violations. "You haven't shared any proprietary information, but they could make your life difficult with legal fees alone." "Can they stop the inspection?" I asked. "No. Once the safety board decides to inspect, it happens." "But Kenny, be careful. These corporate types play dirty when cornered." I hung up, anger mixing with anxiety. They were trying to intimidate me into silence while hurriedly fixing the very problems I'd highlighted. But what would happen after the inspection passed? They'd go right back to cutting corners, only more carefully next time. I needed more than one inspection. I needed evidence of systemic negligence. The inspection came and went. Western Plains passed, barely. Helen Barnes called me afterward. "They fixed the immediate safety issues," she said, "but I noted several concerns in my report. Their maintenance documentation was inconsistent. Several employees seemed rehearsed in their responses. Will there be penalties?" I asked. "Minor ones, not enough to change behavior long term." I thanked her and hung up, frustrated, but not surprised. Companies like Western Plains knew how to navigate these situations, fix the visible problems, pay the small fines, return to business as usual. That weekend, my doorbell rang. It was Russell, looking nervous on my front porch. "Sorry to bother you at home, Kenny. I needed to show you something away from the plant." He handed me a thumb drive. "What's this?" I asked. "Maintenance The real logs. Ones and the ones they created for the inspection, plus emails between Leonard and corporate about the cost savings initiative. They've been planning these cuts for a year before you were even let go. They needed someone who wouldn't push back like you did." I invited Russell in and we spent hours going through the files. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about replacing an expensive veteran with a cheaper junior manager. Western Plains was implementing a company-wide strategy of deliberate underinvestment in safety and maintenance, offsetting the increased risk of accidents against projected quarterly savings. One email from an Axiom Partners executive was particularly chilling. "Insurance covers accidents. Missed earnings targets cost us investors." They were gambling with people's lives, my people, the ones I'd protected for 22 years. "There's more," Russell said, pointing to another folder. Jason knows the equipment is failing. Look at these maintenance requests he's denied. The list was staggering. Critical safety components, backup systems, preventive replacements, all declined with the same note. Defer to next quarter per budget constraints. Why are you showing me this, Russell? I asked. This could cost you your job. Russell's expression hardened. Alicia's nephew got hurt yesterday. Press guard failed. The one Jason said wasn't critical to replace. Kid's 19 lost to fingers. They're calling it operator error, making him sign papers while he was still on pain meds. My hands clenched involuntarily. They can't do that. They are doing it, Russell said. And it's only a matter of time before something worse happens. After Russell left, I sat in my kitchen for hours. The evidence spread across my table. I was torn between fury and responsibility. These weren't just statistics on a spreadsheet. These were lives. People I'd worked alongside for decades. Families I knew. I picked up my phone to call the safety board again, then stopped. Another inspection wouldn't be enough. Western Plains would clean up temporarily, pay another fine, continue the cycle. No, this required a different approach. I called Diego, then Alicia, then 6 other trusted veterans from the floor. We arranged to meet at Frank's house the next day, neutral territory. When everyone arrived, I laid out what I'd learned, showed them the evidence Russell had provided. So, what do we do? Diego asked when I finished. Go to the media. I shook my head. Not yet. First, we need leverage. What kind leverage? Alicia asked. The kind that hits their bottom line. I said, I'm going to need records of every shortcut, every failure, every near miss since I left. Documented, dated, photographed if possible. They'll fire anyone they catch collecting that information, Frank pointed out. I know, I said. That's why we need to be smart about this and patient. I looked around at these people, skilled workers who deserved better than being treated as disposable parts in a corporate machine. Give me 2 weeks, I said, and whatever you do, keep your eyes open and stay safe. For the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost at Western Plains. I never set foot on the property, but my presence was felt. Diego and the others fed me information daily. Shift reports, equipment failures, safety incidents. I compiled everything meticulously, building a case that couldn't be dismissed. Meanwhile, I made 3 key moves. First, I reached out to George Lawson, a former client who now worked for Western Plains' biggest customer, Meridian Energy Solutions. We met for coffee at a diner 20 meters from the plant. Kenny, good to see you, George said, shaking my hand. Been wondering where you disappeared to. Forced retirement, I said, but that's not why I asked to meet. I showed him photos of defective pressure valves that had shipped from Western Plains in the past month. Valves that would be installed in Meridian systems. These passed inspection, George asked, frowning. The new inspection process, yes. The corner cutting has consequences. I couldn't live with myself if something failed at one of your facilities. George studied the photos carefully. This is serious, Kenny. We've got 30-year relationships with our suppliers, but safety comes first. All I'm asking is that Meridian conducts its own quality audit. See for yourself. My second move was contacting Helen Barnes again at the safety board. This time, instead of general concerns, I provided specific documented violations complete with dates, times, and photographic evidence. This is much more substantial than before, Helen said. I'll need to bring my supervisor in on this. I understand, I told her. Just please keep my name out of it for now. The third move was the riskiest. I reached out to Jason Vaver directly. Asked him to meet me for lunch away from the plant. To my surprise, he agreed. He looked tired when he showed up at the restaurant. Dark circles under his eyes, his collar slightly askew. I appreciate you meeting me, I said after we ordered. How's the floor running? Jason ran a hand through his hair. Honestly, it's a mess. Equipment failing left and right. Corporates breathing down my neck about production targets. But I can't make quota with half the line breaking down every other day. They didn't tell you what you were walking into, did they? They said the operation needed modernizing, that you were resistant to change, but every time I tried to fix something, 3 more problems pop up. I nodded. That's because they dismantled a system that worked. Those maintenance schedules you scrapped, they weren't excessive, they were necessary. Leonard says the budget can't support that level of maintenance. And how's the budget looking with production down and quality issues rising? Jason's silence was answer enough. Listen, I said, I didn't ask you here to gloat. I asked because in about 2 weeks, several things are going to happen. Meridian Energy is going to demand a quality audit. The safety board is going to conduct another surprise inspection, and the evidence of systematic safety violations is going to land on several desks, including corporate headquarters. Jason paused. Are you threatening me? No, I'm giving you a choice. You can be the fall guy when this all comes crashing down, the inexperienced manager who couldn't handle the job, or you can get ahead of it. How? By documenting everything Leonard and corporate have pushed on you. Every maintenance request you submitted that was denied, every safety concern that was dismissed. Jason stared at his untouched food. They'll fire me, maybe, but you'd be doing the right thing and you wouldn't have a preventable death on your conscience. I left Jason with my card. Think about it. You've got 1 week. 3 days later, he texted me. I'm in. What do you need from me? The pieces were falling into place. Now, we just needed one final push, a situation that would force Western Plains to face the consequences of their choices. As if on cue, the #1 hydraulic press, the heart of the production line, catastrophically failed the next day. No injuries, thankfully, but ground to a halt. The crisis point had arrived. My phone rang at 6:15 a.m. It was Leonard Wright himself. Kenny, he said, strain evident in his voice. We have a situation at the plant, so I've heard, I replied calmly. The shutdown had been all over the plant group chat by midnight. Look, I'll be direct. We need your expertise. The main press is down, production's halted, and we have orders backing up. Our maintenance team can't identify the problem. That's because you fired Sam, who maintained that press for 15 years, pointed out. Leonard's sigh was heavy. Can we set aside the past for now? The company is willing to bring you in as a consultant to get us operational again. I'm listening. $300 per hour cash. No questions asked about how you fix it. We just need it running by end of week. I almost laughed. They thought this was about money. I'll be there in an hour, I said, but I have conditions. 1. I bring my own team, Diego, Russell, and 2. Alicia. I have complete authority over repair decisions and parts orders. 3. I want access to all maintenance records for the past 6 months. Leonard hesitated then. Fine, whatever it takes. When I walked into the plant an hour later, the floor was in chaos. Operators standing idle, managers huddled in corners, whispering urgently. The massive hydraulic press sitting silent and dark. Jason approached me immediately. Thank God you're here. It's worse than I thought, I nodded. Let's see it. As I inspected the press, everything became clear. Multiple system failures caused by months neglected maintenance, exactly what I'd warned about. I turned to Leonard, who was hovering nearby. I can fix this, but first I need to show you something. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I just sent this report to Axiom Partners executive team, the State Safety Board, and Meridian Energy Solutions. It details every safety violation, every corner cut, and every risk created by the policies you've implemented. Leonard's face drained of color. You can't do that. I already have, I said. Now, do you want this? Press fixed or not, 3 days. That's how long it took to fix the hydraulic press. A repair that would have been a simple maintenance issue if they'd followed my original schedules. During those 3 days, Western Plains experienced a whirlwind of consequences. Meridian Energy suspended their orders pending a full quality review. The safety board arrived for another inspection, this one much more thorough than the last. And Axiom Partners sent their own operations team to assess the situation. By day 3, Leonard was gone, reassigned to corporate headquarters. Jason remained, but in a reduced role, reporting to a new operations director who'd been dispatched from the parent company. That new director, Thomas Whitfield, called me into the office after we got the press running again. "Impressive work," he said. "The corporate team has reviewed your documentation." "Very thorough." I waited, saying nothing. "We're implementing a complete overhaul of maintenance and safety protocols at all our facilities," Thomas continued. "And we'd like to offer you a position, Director of Manufacturing Operations for Western Plains." I considered the offer. "At what salary?" Thomas named a figure 30% higher than I'd been making before, and complete autonomy over maintenance schedules and safety procedures within budget constraints. "Yes," I shook my head. "That's the problem. Safety can't be budgeted quarter by quarter." I stood to leave, then paused. "I'll consult 3 days a week, my hourly rate. I'll help you rebuild the systems I created, train your people properly, and get production back to where it should be, but I won't be an employee again." Thomas considered this, then nodded. "Acceptable." I didn't go back for the title or the money. I went back for Diego and Alicia and Russell and all the others who deserve to work in a safe environment. I went back to rebuild what I'd spent 22 years creating. When I walked onto the floor the next Monday, the machines were already humming more smoothly. They knew their old caretaker had returned.